everybody, this is Joji, your knitting friend, and this is my knitting journal where I record videos and I ramble about my knitting. I tell you a bit behind the scenes what's going on here, which is not a lot, but yeah, that's it. Today I am recording Joji's journal number 74, which, given how very rarely I record, it's astonishing that we have gotten to 74. So thank you all for being here. How are you doing? Today is July 2 in 2024, and it's a cold Tuesday here where I am. I am wearing my newly released hip striped shawl, which is one of the patterns that we're featuring for this episode, if we can call them that. This is a pattern that I designed recently. It was first presented to a group of travelers that were with me in Italy, and then immediately I released it to the general public a couple of days later on Ravelry, so there was virtually no delay. This is a crescent-shaped shawl, and it uses a yarn by mYak called Kupa. It's a mix of yak and cotton, and it's a fingering weight. Because this yarn comes in very small skeins, I used 4 skeins of the main color, which is the lighter one, and I think 3 skeins of the lighter color, the main color is the light color, the contrasting color is the dark one. I think I used 4 and 3, but remember these are 25 gram skeins, so they kind of equal. Every 4 skein would be a big 100 gram skein, but because I used all 4 skeins to make the main color of the shawl, if you use just 1 skein, just make sure that it is a bigger, on the bigger side skein. I love this shawl. I have been wearing it quite a lot. A while ago I realized that I like neutral stripes, and I was lacking a shawl that didn't have any other colors that I could just wear whenever I want my outfit to be very neutral, something that doesn't really clash with anything else that I'm wearing. Today I'm wearing summer clothes, even though it's cold, because I've been taking some photographs for Joji & Co, and I wanted my outfit not to be so wintry, but I've also been wearing this shawl even when it's colder, because it's like the right colors that I want to wear. The colors are called Samana. Samana is the light and Avalokita is the dark, and they are grays. So Avalokita is a charcoal gray and Samana is like a beigey gray. There's a lot of garter stitch in this shawl, and there's the lovely stitch pattern that I've used for my hipster shawl. There's no other texture, just the Indian cross stitch pattern and garter stitch. When I was writing these 2 patterns that I'm going to talk about, so this is one of the 2 patterns that came out last week. The other one, let's go get it. The other one is the hipster top. And I have shown this before in the journal. So these 2 were designed to be matchy, and they were both part of the mYak retreat. And when I was designing these 2, I remember that often people ask me questions about how to knit this. So I went ahead and recorded a very short video here on my YouTube that you can watch, where I show how to knit how I knit the Indian cross stitch, which matches the description of these 2 patterns. Whenever I design something that is for a group that's going to go to a retreat, I try to think that first of all, don't be disappointed, Joji, if no one wants to cast on this project, because whenever I go on a trip, I already have decided what I am going to be knitting. So perhaps someone just imposing a pattern that I haven't seen before, or that I don't know if I really like, it might not be exactly what I want to knit in the moment. So first of all, that. Second, if someone decides to start the pattern, then I try to make it so that it's easy and that it doesn't start with, doesn't have a lot of complex sections. So the hipster top does start with the most complex part of the pattern, which is the section where it has the little cross stitches, but then it's just stockinette stitch and nothing else, really nothing else happens. It has a square shape, so when you see me wearing it, you'll see that it looks kind of like a cap sleeve, but it's just a square shape. Then it doesn't have any waist shaping. It's kind of boxy fitting, so it's not meant to be fitted, but rather a little bit on the loose side. Then there is virtually no shaping on the back. It's just a straight line along the back neck. And then we have the V-neck, which is done by increasing stitches here on the neckline. Then one thing that I did with this pattern that is different from some of my other patterns is that I tried to make it so that you don't have to do any finishing at the end. So I designed it to have a little built-in I-cord here. So it's just slipping some stitches at the beginning or at the end of the row, and it gives the neckline a bit of a cordy texture. So it's already finished. You don't have to pick up stitches and finish it later. And also because I didn't want the stripes to be interrupted. I figured that if I was doing a neckline, I probably would have had to pick the lighter color, and we would have a white neckline here, which it wouldn't have been terrible, but it's not really the idea that I had in my mind, how I wanted this top to look like. And also on the sleeve edge, there are a few, let me bring that closer to you so you can see what I'm talking about. Sorry about that. So this is the little I-cord edging that I was talking about. And there are a few garter stitches on the edge of the sleeve, so also you don't have to really do any finishing on the neckline or on the sleeves. Basically, when you bind off all the stitches down here, you're done. You just have to weave in the ends, tidy up any joints or anything that you feel like it's not really neat. You can tidy up with when you are weaving in the ends, and that's it. And then you have to block and wear it. This thing knits up super fast. It really does. Once you pick up your size, you're ready to go. To pick up the size, I would recommend measure the fullest parts of the bust, so the fullest part, and then add 2 to 4 inches of positive ease for this top. It's meant to be worn with a little bit of positive ease, and then that's it. A lot of people have said that they find the armhole depth a little bit short for them. It is designed that way because it's meant to have some positive ease, so the sleeve actually starts more towards the top of your arm rather than at the armhole. And I didn't want that to be too deep because I didn't want the armholes to flare out. But if you feel like that is too short for your sleeve size, then just make this a little bit deeper. It just means that you have to knit a bit more before joining the back piece with the front pieces. So this is knitted from the top down. You first start with the back piece, then you need this front, then you need that front, and when you reach the armhole depth, you join everything together. So if you feel like you need to make that armhole a little bit longer, just knit for, I don't know, a fraction of an inch or an inch, and then you can join. So this is Hipster Top. I think it's graded to either 9 or 10 sizes. It's designed for the same yarn, Kupa Organic Cotton and Yak by mYak, and it's a great basic summer top, like an everyday kind of top that I've been enjoying wearing in the summer. Not really right now. I finished this a long time ago. I think I finished this back in February, so I wore it a couple of times. But right now it is a bit cold to be wearing that in Buenos Aires where I am. By the way, right now it's 5:30 in the afternoon and it's winter time. It will soon be nighttime. So I'm using this horrible lighting from my studio, which I always talk about. Just allow me to complain about the lights. The lights also make this image super grainy, but it is what it is. When I have tried different settings, there was always something that made me a little bit uncomfortable. So I am most comfortable recording with my laptop, which I know is not ideal. I know that the sound is not great, but it really helps me see what I'm showing you and then be more readily available to record. Okay, so if you get both patterns, the Hipster Top and the Hip Stripe Shawl at the same time, so each of these is only $6.50. That's the whole like final price, but if you get them together, you get a 30% discount on both. So that brings both patterns for only $9.10. So I hope you give these patterns a try. They are very simple patterns. They are beginner friendly and they make me happy. I just like a good gray stripe. It's probably what I'm most comfortable designing. Every time I choose a color, I second guess myself. So yeah, those are the two feature patterns for today. I have so much to tell you about, especially regarding my latest trips, that I don't think I'll be able to cover everything. I probably will have to stop at one point and get some yarn to show you. But I've recently come from 2 big knitting trips. One of them was to Alaska. It was with the grocery girls and it was a cruise. I brought my husband. It was gorgeous. We departed from Seattle and we took a cruise line called the Holland America Line, and the ship was called Eurodam. And it goes from Seattle to several ports in Alaska and then returning to Seattle. When we got to Seattle, we spent 2 nights in Seattle before boarding the Eurodam. And during that time, I was able to visit Bainbridge Island, where you can find both the Lamb and Kid and La Mercerie. The first shop that I visited was the Lamb and Kid, and they were basically waiting for the group. I don't think that they knew I was coming or that anyone in particular was coming, but they were ready for the people who were joining the grocery girls on that trip, and they were ready with appetizers and drinks, and they were really nice. The shop, as I said, is situated on an island near Seattle. You have to take a ferry that takes about 40 minutes each way. But then once you get off the ferry, the shop is super close. It's an amazing, mind-blowing shop. It's on the larger side. It's one of the largest shops that I've been to. I've been to larger shops, but this one's rather large. And what strikes me is probably the decoration of the place. I feel like everything has been really well thought, and you will find a lot of different corners in the shop where there's different yarns. Of course, they carry both of their own yarns called, one of them is the Lamb & Kid brand. Let me go get some of them. One of them is the Lamb & Kid, and the other one is Dimond Laine. So they sell these two brands mostly, and they have, of course, a lot of accessories, notions, many project bags from this company, I think it's Wow Amsterdam, that makes hand-painted project bags in neon colors. Lots of them. They had amazing decor pieces. Someone, probably Sarah, has a really good taste there, and everything was very well curated. And they also have yarns from another companies. They were super nice. As soon as I arrived to the shop, they greeted me. I have worked with their yarns before, that I used to own another company, Plucky Knitter, and I used to work with Sarah quite a bit. We were working together designing for Plucky, and then when she started the Lamb & Kid and Dimond Laine, we met and she gave me some yarn to design with, and I designed a cardigan called Funky Stripes. And yeah, I love her work. I think that she has the most incredible color sense. She has the ability to put together very striking and solid and powerful colors together, and somehow she makes them work. And yeah, so as soon as I got to the shop, she wasn't there, Sarah, which I was sad to hear because I was looking forward to seeing her. But still, the manager of the shop and the other employees were super nice, and they asked me to pick something to design with, which, you know, I don't like to take yarn. And I did say, I don't know if I'm going to design. No, but even if it's just for a personal project, just take it. So I was so glutton that I couldn't say no. I probably should have said no because I had so many things that I was working on, but the yarn was so beautiful that I really couldn't resist. And I thought of buying it, but probably they wouldn't have allowed me to buy the yarn by the time I got to the cashiers. So I did take the offer, and I picked two yarns, which very quickly turned into my first FO of the day, which is this sweater that is not a pattern yet, but I am working on it. So this sweater is, as I said, a pattern that I am working on, and it should be ready to test tomorrow or the day after. And I used two yarns held together. One of them, I don't have any skeins to show you because I took 3 skeins of this and I used all 3 of them, but it's called Trio and the color is called Cake Pop. And I know what you're thinking, what the hell, right? Pink with speckles. More on that later. And then I mixed it with the same color in this other base the base is called Birdie. It's by Dimond Laine. So the confusing thing is that this yarn is by the Lamb & Kid and this yarn is by Dimond Laine, which are owned by the same people, and the colorways are the same, Cake Pop, but it's confusing that they are 2 different companies, right? Like, I think that someone needs to tell them to consolidate their companies. There's probably a reason, but we probably won't hear what that reason is. Anyway, so this is a lovely skein of Birdie in the cake pop, and this is some lovely leftovers of Trio in cake pop. I took one skein extra of Birdie because they had slightly different yardage, and I didn't want to run out of my, sorry about that noise, I didn't want to run out of that contrasting yarn. So shortly after I left the shop, I already knew I had to cast on with that yarn immediately. And the thing is that when you get into the Lemon Kid, by the way, I'm not, the only affiliation I have with them is that they gave me this yarn to design with. I don't have any participation in their store, but this is what I'm going to say. When you go into the Lemon Kid, it's very hard to live with something gray or like muted colors, unless like you're a regular and they are your suppliers for all of your colors. For me, someone who's not so used to going to a yarn store, I don't get to do that so often. All the color was very inspiring. It can be overwhelming, but in my case it was very inspiring, and I felt that leaving the store with something that was not colorful or that didn't have an identity, then it would be such a lost opportunity. So, and then I saw the speckles and they were really calling my name, and even the employees said, but Joji, what's going on? This is not your usual colors. And I asked them if they were starting to make more speckles, because Sarah's aesthetics and the Lemon Kids aesthetic is mostly solids, and they did say that yes, that they were venturing into more speckles. Said, okay, I will take this, because I think that when I see this sweater, I will always think of you and how unique this yarn was to me, and how it will remind me of my feelings visiting the store, rather than just a color that I could have gotten somewhere else. When I got to the cash register, there was a beautiful sample of my super simple summer sweater, and they had made it using a completely different yarn, and so I complimented the sample, and they said, don't you want to take some of that yarn as well? And I couldn't say no, guys. I was very weak. I was like, yeah, it was gluttony. It was just pure gluttony. And so I said yes. And I took 4 skeins of their, this is the big Birdie or Birdie Decay. Just one sec. I need these, guys. Okay, so this is Birdie Decay, 90% alpaca, 10% silk. This is 246 yards per 100 grams. So it's quite a nice yardage for a thick yarn. I wonder if this knits up as a decay. I think it probably knits up as a worsted or even an Aran. This is like the softest thing, and honestly, I am very tempted to start a new design using this, but you guys know that I like to keep my companies varied. I don't like to always support the same person, which, you know, it's a natural thing because I do have my favorites, I do have my preferences, so I have a tendency to always want to work with similar yarns or yarns from the same company. It doesn't have to do with the person. It's not a friend thing. Like I say, I want to support my friend, but I do have my favorites, and so it's an effort for me to say, no, you have already designed with these. Let's look at someone else. Let's diversify a little bit the palette, which also keeps things fresh, not just for me, but for you too. So those were my acquisitions from Bainbridge Island. The Birdie Decay is in 2 colors, and this one is Sunny Side Up, and the pink is called Peekaboo. Then we visited La Mercerie, which is, I think it was like a couple of blocks away. We went down a main street, we had pizza, and then we went to La Mercerie. And if you have been to Bainbridge Island in the past, this is where the old shop for church mouse yarns and teas used to be. I visited back in 2017 and the shop was still there. It was the first time that I got some mYak yarn in that church mouse shop. La Mercerie is really nice. It's a new owner, obviously a different shop. It's a more classic type of shop. And there are a lot of European yarns. I think they carry a lot of knitting for olive yarn. They had like more commercially dyed yarns were available there. They had Brooklyn Tweed, knitting for olive. They had some of these, the Sonder Yarn Company that I love from Canada. They had some La Bien-Aimée yarns. I didn't purchase anything from there because I already felt that I was carrying too much yarn from the Lamb and Kid. And I had the suspicion that there was going to be more yarn for me on the cruise ship, which of course there was. So I was clever not to take more yarn with me. And then we also went to a very famous ice cream shop. I think it was Mora, that I visited all the other times that I was in Bainbridge, but it wasn't there anymore. They had sold the ice cream shop. It's called something else. I had ice cream, it was delicious, but in my defense, I love all ice cream. So I couldn't say if it's the same, if it's better, if it's worse. If it's ice and it has sugar and cream in it, I love it and I will eat it for sure. Then we got onto the cruise and it was amazing. Once I was settled in my stateroom with my husband, it was absolutely amazing. I had never taken a cruise before and I didn't know how I was going to feel. You guys know I'm a very active person and I was kind of scared that I was going to feel claustrophobic or encaged. Nothing like that. I had the most amazing times. Even the days that we were at sea, I was able to do a lot of things on board, and I even got to go to the gym, and I was taking naps. And honestly, I needed more time on the cruise ship. I loved it. Everything about cruising was absolutely amazing. The route, the service, the food, the drinks, and of course, the most important, the group of knitters. So this cruise was organized by Tracy and Jody from the Grocery Girls, and they were teaching as well as hosting, and they were teaching a class called Sock Talk. Then they hired 3 other teachers. I was teaching by myself. I was the only one that was lonely inside the classroom. And they also hired Think and Knits, which is a 2-people team, Alexa and Emily. Alexa and Emily were teaching a class called Strange Brew, and it talks about their lovely yoke designs and how to make yoke sweaters, circular yoke sweaters, and how to design your own color work and make modifications and all you want to know about yoke sweaters. And then myself, I was teaching a class called Design Your Own Drop Shoulder Cardigan, which I have talked about before here. It's the construction is pretty basic, but I have you think of your design and design your own cardigan while we're in class. And also we take measurements and we talk about other aspects of sweater design, which I hope that were interesting to all the attendees. There were about 90 knitters, so that allowed the group to be divided into 3 groups, 3 subgroups. Each subgroup got the same class from the grocery girls, from Tinker Knits, and from myself. So everyone took the classes together. The yellow group had classes first with grocery girls, then with Tinker Knits, and then with me. And there were other 2 groups. So we had classes when we were sailing. So when we were at sea, there were days that we had classes. All the classes happened in the morning. So it was 3 days of classes only. Then in the afternoon, there were some activities. There was a Q&A, and the grocery girls had secured a space in one of the nicest bars / coffee shop in the cruise. So just imagine the top floor of the cruise. At the front, there's a beautiful cafe, and they managed to secure an area where, of course, anyone could actually get inside, but it was signed with ropes, and that is where all the knitters used to hang out. So whenever you wanted, of course, you could go take a nap, you could go with your partner, do something, but then when you wanted some knitting time and socializing and meeting other people, maybe get a drink or glass of wine or some coffee, you could go to this space, and there were always knitters hanging out there, and you always had knitting, chatting, and company. It was absolutely fabulous. You know what? I always work so hard, even with our family trips. I had to do the organizing, the logistics, the planning. And with this trip, everything was organized for me. I was going to bed in one port, and then on the next day, I was on a different port, and I was just venturing out, doing my hiking, doing my running, doing my outdoor activities. And then when I came, people were cooking for me. They were doing my room, and I didn't have to move things from a hotel to the other one. I always had a knitting friend. It was amazing. I want to do it again next week. I highly recommend, if you want to have a relaxed holidays with other knitters, it's fabulous. It's like I absolutely loved cruising, and you might not know or might not remember, but I have to do it again in August. I have to go work on another cruise that goes from New Jersey to Canada, and then Greenland, and finally Iceland. And I was very nervous, thinking, how am I going to feel? Will I like this? The only downside is that I will be by myself. Charlie won't be there. But I think that it will be a very creative time on the ship. So I plan to pack a lot of yarn and knit and explore and knit and explore. On the ship, as I was saying, I got a lot of things. I got a lot of presents. Thank you everyone who brought a present for me. I got chocolates, bonbons, beef jerky, fresh produce. I got creams and project bags and a lot of charms and hugs and kisses and cards, and thank you. I really, truly, truly appreciate it. I'm just going to show you the yarns that I got. So first of all, I got these yarns in the swag that the grocery girls were giving all the attendees. This is Frankie Gray Fibers. It is the yarn company owned by Joji of the Grocery Girls and her daughter, and this color is called Seize the Day, but as in seize, which I love. And there is a couple of contrasting colored minis. This is a DK weight sock yarn, and it has lovely contrasting yarns. The base is called DK weight. 75 superwash merino, 25% nylon, and I think that the coral has some glitter, some stellina there. Then the lovely Maureen, who's currently test knitting for me, thank you Maureen if you're watching, brought me this big power ball and some other yarns that I gifted to my mom because she deserves it. And she kept talking about this dyer called Yarn Snob. This is a guy who's called Keith, and he sent me this yarn via Maureen. Thank you both so much. Keith makes these huge balls of yarn that equal 5 skeins of yarn. I think that's what I found online because it didn't have a tag. I think this is a fingering weight power ball. So this is big enough to make a sweater. I don't have any information about the color, but I looked it up on their website. And yeah, I think this is their fingering weight. 100% superwash merino. Correct me if I'm wrong. It has a lovely ply. It's a 2-ply, ply twice. And I love this lavender color. And then Maureen also brought some silk blends that I gave there was a single ball, and I gave it to my mother-in-law who's now knitting, and I love it and I'm so happy. And then she gave me 2 skeins of a silk blend, and I gave that to my mom. But mom and my mom-in-law, they both say thank you so much. They were so happy. And then I also had the surprise of seeing Pam from Windswept Fibers. And Pam has been a sponsor of our Hockey Fall Knit Along for some years now. Every year she offers a lovely prize, and she was part of the attendees, and I had never met her before. Of course, I was so grateful for her sponsorship, and she was so lovely that she even brought some yarn for me, and it's the softest thing ever. This is her. Okay, let's get our friends because I'm now forcing my sight and it's dark. Okay, this is her Comfort Cove 4-ply DK. It's 70% natural gray baby alpaca, 20% silk, 10% cashmere. So this is alpaca, silk, and cashmere. And she got me 5 skeins of this gorgeous color. And this reminds me a lot. Several years ago, I designed a cardigan for Laine magazine called Laine's Cardigan, and I used a yarn by Walk Collection that I think it was the same blend. If it wasn't, it was so close to it, because as soon as I touched it, it reminded me of that. I think it was Alpaca Luxe or something, or Walk Collection Luxe. It's the softest thing. And I was talking to Vera, and I remember that, that I do have hand memory, right? I know that you think that I'm inventing all these feelings, but I know, I really know my yarn when I touch it. And then, even before that yarn, in 2014, I went to Loop London, and they were carrying yarn by a dyer called Juno. If you remember Juno, she was an amazing dyer. She had luxury bases and I know that it's distracting. She had luxury bases, and all her colors were very, very elegant and classy. And I got 5 skeins of a similar base in a color, in a lime, like a lemon lime color. And shortly after I made that investment, which it was an expensive yarn, this is an expensive yarn, Juno stopped dyeing. So I felt that I couldn't really use that yarn in a design because the dyer wasn't working anymore. And so later one of my greatest friends, Nash, she was pregnant with her baby, and I knitted her a blanket, one of my designs, the So Close blanket, in using this same yarn in the lemon lime, and I sent it to her. This yarn brings back those two projects that I loved, and it's a very dear base to me. So thank you, Pam. If you're watching, I love it. I cherish it. I have 5 skeins of this treasure, and I hope that they will soon tell me what they want to become. In the meantime, if you want to go check them out, again, this is Pam from Windswept Fibers. She's from Canada. She's in Nova Scotia, I think. Hold on. Windswept Fibers. No, Newfoundland and Labrador. And the yarn is called Comfort Cove 4-ply DK, and the colorway name is Mosey Day. And yes, so absolutely amazing experience with the cruise. Would I do it again? 100%. Yes, I loved it. I wish I had time to travel even more than I do, because it's my biggest motivation in life. I would say, okay, my biggest motivation is my family and doing things for my kids, but then it's traveling. I have this big drive for getting to know the world and getting to know all the people, which is what makes traveling so interesting to me, all the people, all the food. And I would totally do it again. Shortly after, I came back home from that cruise, and not a week later, I had to leave again on another work trip. And this second trip, I went to Italy with my son Sebi to work for mYak, where I presenting the 2 designs that I presented today. It was formidable. If that's a word in English as it is in Spanish, it was formidable. Paola, the owner of mYak, puts together 5-star retreats, and I had been there last year with my eldest son, Nano. And when she asked me if I would do it again, if I would teach in Cavalese again, I would say yes, of course, as long as I can come with my other son. Cavalese is where Paola is from. She grew up there. It's a little town, little village, perched up in the mountains in the north of Italy, so very close to Switzerland. And it's, I don't know how many inhabitants, but it's small. It's a small village. It's not a ski village, but it's very influenced by the fact that it's in the Dolomites, the mountain chain in north of Italy, and there are several ski resorts around it. So the houses are alpine style with little cobblestone streets. We were staying at a lovely resort/hotel with, it was not a tiny hotel, it was a medium-sized hotel, so there were other guests, but I think that we knitters made the bulk of the occupation of the hotel. Sebi and I went first to the Netherlands to visit my sister, of course, and my nephews, and then we flew into Milan, where we met up with a group of knitters, and we all took a bus from Milan airport to Cavalese, which is like a 4 or 5 hour ride. Then the retreat was 4 nights and 4 days, and it was all included except for alcoholic drinks, except for some occasions. Like there were some tastings that were included. There was an aperitivo that was included, but then there, in other opportunities, it was not. It included everything but the alcoholic beverages. But all the excursions and all the classes, it was everything included. At the mYak retreat, I taught 2 workshops. One of them was Sweaters That Fit, And then I also taught a class that's kind of an old class, but I refreshed it. And in this case, it was not just about color. It was also learning about yarn texture and yarn properties and how to study and understand your yarn. There were 23 knitters. I got to know all of them. So if you're watching, if I had such a fabulous time, you know that I did. You saw me. I was smiling the entire time. It was a great trip with family. I had vacations there as well. I ran, I hiked. Sebi and I even did some whitewater rafting in the local river, which was mind-blowing. And I have a great time every time I spend time with mYak team. They are great people. They carry a wonderful company. They do great social work. I'm very proud of collaborating with them and working for them. And the retreat is just somewhere that I would happily pay to be an attendee, and I have the good fortune of enjoying it while I work. Absolutely top-notch food. The place, like, it couldn't really be any nicer. The people, it was just so outstanding. Irina from the Fiber Chats podcast was there, and she did a great summary of a recap of what we did there, so you can go watch. It's called Fiber Chats, the podcast. But there were so many other podcasters. So first of all, Kim from Knitting with Kim and Jonah was an attendee last year, and we had a great time there, and I was so happy to learn that she had signed up for this year's retreat as well. So of course I was expecting to meet her. And then I also was expecting to meet my friend Nara, who I didn't get time on the cruise, but fortunately she was in Italy as well, so we hung out there. And also Andrea and Madeline from Fruity Knitting Podcast had driven from Germany to Cavalese. They went there for the opportunity to interview mYak, of course, and then they asked me if they could interview me, which was such an honor. I think that the episode is coming out in July. It was a great interview. Andrea is very professional and she really prepares for every interview, and I had to do a little bit of work for that. So I hope she was happy with what I did. That I don't want to bore you guys. I just want to show you some yarns that mYak is launching or already promoting that they gave me, that I brought home to design with. So one of them is Fiordilino. I loved it. It reminded me of the Manos del Uruguay yarn that I use for my granito design. The linen, of course, doesn't take the dye, so it stays white. It comes in these balls, and and this is 50% Tibetan cloud wool, which is mYak's classic wool. It comes from Tibet, of course. Then 35% baby yak, 15% Italian linen. So it's wool, yak, and linen. And the colors are cafe latte and graphite. And also, let's talk about weight. This is a 50 grams ball, and it carries 200 meters. So I would say it's a fingering weight. And also, they have opened a sub-branch of the company called Fibre Gentili, Gentle Fibers. And this is mYak's effort to create yarns from using Italian fiber. So this is 100% Italian wool, and it is sourced and spun and dyed in Italy. And I think that's why they're using a different brand, because this doesn't come from mYaks or Tibet. So it's a whole different, also social project from mYak. And they gave me a few scales. The Fiori Gentili, I think they did say it's a sport weight, and it definitely looks like a sport weight. Okay, so those were a lot of stash acquisitions that I had to diligently add to my Ravelry stash, and then I moved to my shelves. I'm trying to stay up to date with that and not let yarn come without being cataloged, but also I have to be careful every time I give something to mom. And now I'm also giving yarn to my mom-in-law and to Lara and Sylvia, my 2 Joji & Co employees who are learning to knit. So I have to be diligent and take them out of my database before I give them to them. Okay, I showed you one of my FOs. My other finished object is a beanie that it's still wet. But if I don't show you now, you will never see it, because I'm going to give it to the recipient. It's a basic ribbed beanie that it's very wet for me to put on my head. I talked about knitting for joy in my latest episodes, and how I realized I wasn't giving myself time to knit for me and to knit for others just for joy. So as soon as my friend Gerar saw the beanie that I was making, a red beanie that I finished for previous episode, he said, "Oh, is that for me?" And I didn't think that the color complemented him, so I finished the red one, but I immediately cast on this charcoal gray one. This is a basic beanie. I didn't use a pattern. I cast on 96 stitches, and I work with US 6 needles. This is a worsted weight yarn, Madelinetosh 80-10-10. Remember that yarn? Madelinetosh 80-10-10 worsted in the Dirty Panther colorway. And I hope he likes it. And then when I got to the required length, I started decreasing every 12 stitches. I divided my work in groups of 12, and I started doing crown decreases until I got to only 12 stitches, and then I bound off. I just pulled my yarn through and bound off. I have 4 works in progress that I can show you today. So first is my Brioche cardigan. This is a long-term project. I've been working on this one for a long time. I decided to block the body because my tension had been very uneven, and I was not really loving the result. So I thought that if I blocked it, I would appreciate the garment more, and I absolutely do. It was the right thing to do, because now I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh, it's so lovely. So this is a new design that I'm working on. It's not newspaper, it's a different construction, and there are garter stitch sections in between. But of course now every time we see a brioche design of mine, we compare it to the newspaper pullover. I'm using Magpie fibers, solo fingering. I won't remember the name of the colors, but I'm not far from being done. I finished one sleeve. I have to make the other sleeve, and then I yet haven't decided what I will do with the button band. I don't know if I'll do a ribbing or garter stitch. And my initial idea was to work a shawl collar, but now that it's blocked, I don't know that it will work great, because I think that the back neck is a little bit too wide for a shawl collar. So we'll see. I think that it will be just a regular collar. So that's my work in progress number 1. Work in progress number 2 is a very old project. Those of you who have watched for the past 2 years might remember, but back when I returned from one of my trips, I started a blanket, and I triple stranding or double stranding, depending on the weight, different leftovers. So I'm trying to use up all my gray. Sorry about the poor quality of the video. I'm trying to use up all my gray yarns, and then every now and then I am striping in this Sari yarn from Darn Good Yarn, just to add a little bit of interest. And this was forgotten for years, or for a couple of years. It was forgotten. It spent some time at the summer house. This little piece was here in my studio, and it became a scarf, then it became Perri blanket, and my dog has been using our blankets quite a bit, and of course I wash them every now and then. And so I decided, hey, I have half a blanket done, I should pick it up and work some more rows and finish it. So I think this will be just 2 sections that I'm going to sew together, and that's gonna be big enough for Perri to use here in my studio. By the way, Perri is right there. She's always with me, and she needs a few blankets for comfort, and I don't have a lot more to go. So I will decide when I finish my second band if I want to start a third one or if I will leave it there. But I have picked this Scrappy blanket up. So basically I'm triple stranding all these gray leftovers from various projects, and it's very satisfying to do that because I reduce my leftover bin. At the same time, I feel like I'm using yarn like crazy. It goes so fast because look at these needles, it's so big. It's very satisfying, and it actually is hard to stop when I'm knitting on that project. It's hard to remind myself that I have to work and I have to go work on other projects as well. Work in progress number 3. I started this yesterday. So one of my most successful projects that I've ever made is Perri's sweater. You can see a photo here. It's a Stephen West pattern. It's called the Brioche Pup Sweater. She wears it incredibly well. Now that it's so cold here in Buenos Aires, she wears it almost every time we go out. She gets so many compliments. I can be wearing a super mega masterpiece, but I don't get any compliments. Perri gets all the compliments on her sweater. But of course, Perri is an active dog like her mother, so she likes to roll in the dirt or in the mud. Sometimes she likes to roll next to the pond on duck poop and stuff like that. So every time I have to wash her only sweater, I feel like I have to start, she has to have 2 so that I can actually wash them more frequently. So I decided I would make her another one this year. And because I have the Stephen West's dog pattern ebook, I decided to start the the striped pup sweater. Another thing is that most people think that Perri is a male dog. Perri is a female dog, and I feel compelled to tell people all the time, oh, it's a she, it's not a he. So I think that perhaps if I make her a very feminine sweater, it will be more understood that it's a female dog. And I'm not just being dense about her gender, whether it's a female dog or a male dog, but if you are a dog owner who are going every night at the park, you know that for a lot of dogs it's very important whether it's a she or a he, because some dog owners will only let dogs play with the opposite gender because they might be aggressive. So I'm always answering, oh, it's a she, oh no, don't go, it's a he, no, it's a she, oh, okay, then they can play. So it is a thing to show your dog's gender. It is actually a thing where I'm from. I don't know. And I think that if I knit with female colors, it will make her look more like a she-dog. So what am I using? I'm using leftovers, but not just leftovers. A couple of years ago, we had what I call the debacle of 2022, where I had a big basket of yarn that was bitten by moth. It was attacked by moth, especially the yarn inside that basket. The basket came from our summer house. It was infested with moth, and several balls, several yarns that were already skeined, and some others were affected, and we cleaned it up, we froze everything. We've been, of course, trying to keep an eye on everything. There are mothballs everywhere now. And I gave a lot of that yarn to my mom. She's been making projects. Some of it I had to throw away because it was so damaged, and some of it I kept myself. So I'm making Perri sweater with 3 balls of yarn that were damaged by moth. Of course, they were wound up like this, so I have already used up the parts that were damaged, and now I got to the parts that don't show any damage. But it felt nice to not only use leftovers, but also leftovers damaged. And this was not a leftover, but it's a skein of yarn. So I'm going to stripe these 2 colors. This is a neckplant color. This is a yarn that my friend Maggie gifted me in 2015. And it's a whole sweater slot of yarn. It's by the Woolen Rabbit. I don't know if the dyer is still working. The yarn is called Opal. And Maggie had wound up one of the balls because she had made a swatch. So the one that was damaged was the one that was wound up already, because I put it into that basket. The rest of the yarn is up there and it doesn't have any damage. But you can see up here how moth have damaged my yarn. So when I get to this part, I probably have to be very careful and not leave any parts that could break. Like, for example, I think that this bit will break, so I will probably take some sections out, but I will make it work, and I will make there so that I don't accidentally knit with it and then it creates a hole in the garment. I broke it already. So that will be Perri's new sweater. I hope that I will have a few stripes to show you next time I record. So that's work in progress number 3. And the last work in progress is a new top that I have just started, another summer top. When I finished the pink sweater, I was kind of sad because I didn't find inspiration right away. And I feel whenever I'm not working on a pattern that it's a design, I feel like I'm stalling or like losing time. And I was blocking my Brioche cardigan, so I didn't have anything to work on for a couple of days until the Brioche cardigan dried up. So I asked on Instagram for what would people really like to knit right now. And there were many requests, or many people saying that they would like to knit another summer top. So a while ago I had, oops, this is not going to show at all. So you can see some of the stitch pattern there, but the light is working against me today. So a while ago, I received this lovely aubergine colored yarn from Natissea in France. Natissea. And it's called Linaé. This is a silk and cotton blend, linen and cotton blend. This is cataloged on Ravelry as a light fingering weight. I am knitting it with US 4 3.5 millimeter needles, and it's given me a gauge of 20 stitches. So I would say it's more like a sport weight, because yes, it's a kind of an open fabric, but I wouldn't say it's a light fingering. No, I wouldn't say it's a light fingering. So this is going to be a basic shape tank top with a crew neck on the front. This is the back, and then regular, not square but shaped armholes. This is like a faux cable pattern, and it's staggered, so the sides have shorter panels and they get longer towards the center, and it's going to have the same effect on the front, but the neckline is going to be a little lower on the front. So that is my fourth and last work in progress for today. I hope you like that. And yes, I am very inspired lately. I don't know if you can tell that I'm very connected with my knitting right now. I want to knit all the things. I also have a lovely idea for a cabled cardigan that I want to start, and a few more things. I have to be diligent and start a few projects, not just one, because I will go on that boat trip, on that cruise in August. My family and I are going onto our snow ski trip in July. So yes, hopefully I will have a lot of traveling time to knit, and I want to be prepared with a lot of projects that I can make progress on while I'm riding or flying or sailing. Okay, that was a lot for today. As always, I am so happy that you're watching, and I hope that this was entertaining, that I kept you company, and I'm looking forward to next time. Bye bye.